Regardless of what we technically call it, I think most of us can agree that all signs are pointing to an economy that is getting tighter, which means your small business clients will need your assistance in evaluating the spending of every dollar. How would you like to be the hero to your clients by helping them to get free payroll until January 31st, 2023? I repeat, free payroll until January 31st, 2023. Stay tuned to hear more from our sponsor OnPay later in the episode.
The PhDs are who are screwing up accounting theory because they've never had any real world experience, and they create complexity that doesn't need to exist to justify their existence.
I ran into somebody at QuickBooks Connect. She teaches at her university or community college. I don't know where she's teaching at. That's not the point. The point is, the textbook that they have actually has some screenshots of QuickBooks in the accounting textbook. But the faculty told her, the business department, she's not allowed to teach QuickBooks to these accounting students.
Coming to you weekly from the OnPay recording studio, this is the Cloud Accounting Podcast.
Welcome to the Cloud Accounting Podcast. I'm Blake Oliver.
And I'm David Leary.
And we are back from QuickBooks Connect 2022. David, how are you feeling?
Well, usually we record on Fridays, but we didn't record on Friday because we had a creators meetup group that we did Friday morning at QuickBooks Connect. And then you and I were really aggressive. Let's just record an episode before we get on the airplane to leave QuickBooks Connect. So we didn't do that Friday. And then I think we just rested on Saturday. Then I texted you on Sunday to say, hey, I got a cough. And I pushed us out to we're at Monday morning, 9 a.m. We're going to try and record. I got my Ricola here. I'll try to push through, see what happens.
Good. Yeah, thanks, David. I consider myself very lucky. I feel fine, which is amazing. Normally, I'm wrecked after days and days at conferences because you're on your feet for 12 hours, or at least the way you and I like to do it. We're on our feet for 12 hours or more every day, and it can be kind of exhausting, but it's so much fun. And I would highly, highly recommend to anyone listening who has never been to a QuickBooks Connect or a XeroCon, go to one of those or go to both. Whichever your flavor, whichever your preference, go to that. They are fantastic. And it was so great to see people who I've seen for 10 years at these events, and also new people. You know, I met Taylor, who's a CPA who just started his own practice earlier this year, and it's doing great. And it's so exciting. Awesome.
Well, the event's so big and it feels so fast that you don't get to see everybody you know. And so you're at the airport, then you run into somebody. When you're leaving town, there's just too many people. You can't talk to everybody now. We did have a party, which helped. Everybody came to us, which made things easier. And that was a huge success. Enjoyed that.
That was a first for us. We had a party, and David, you deserve so much, really all of the credit for putting that together. Along with
Chrissy from our team. She does all the work.
Our amazing events coordinator, Chrissy, did it. But David, you hired her, so you take the credit, man. And we had over a couple hundred people in the Chandelier Lounge at the Cosmopolitan. I felt like we have arrived.
We took a lot of photos. My jaw was hurting from smiling.
We took a lot of photos. Everybody. If you want to see photos of the event, follow us on Instagram at CloudACCTPod, or follow me. I'm at Blake T. Oliver, and you can see pictures of the event. It was a lot of fun.
If you're at the event, take your photo, upload it to social, and tag Cloud Accounting Podcast and hashtag QB Connect so we don't miss the other photos that we're taking.
One of the things that's special for me about QuickBooks Connect in particular is the quality of the speakers, David. QuickBooks always brings amazing speakers. Past speakers have included Oprah Winfrey, Shaquille O'Neal, Malcom Gladwell, Martha Stewart. And this year, they had 3 all-star speakers, Serena Williams, Simon Sinek, and Malcom Gladwell, each for 30 minutes. And I wanted to talk a little bit about what they had to say because I really enjoyed their key points. And I have sort of 3 key takeaways from their sessions or their speaking that they did. How about you, David?
I don't have any special takeaways from what they were saying per se, but I think I'll cover the product side and the product announcement.
Yes. Yeah, you were very diligent and went around to the QuickBooks booth and looked at all the new product stuff, which was important because what was different about this event versus previous QuickBooks Connects is that they didn't dwell on the product a lot in the keynote. And so that is how you are going to contribute back to our listeners is you did a tour of the booth with Ted Callahan.
Yep.
And summarized all the most important stuff to know, because it really wasn't one big feature. It was a lot of small stuff, which I think is why they didn't give too much time to the product in the keynotes.
Well, I also feel like this QuickBooks Connect was just accountants and bookkeepers. It was not small businesses. So it allowed them to treat the audience differently. I feel like at previous QuickBooks Connect, some of the product features were very like pie in the sky, like look at this chat thing that's going to drive your Tesla and you're going to chat and order your sugar before you're the baker that gets to the office. Like it was that kind of stuff. I remember that. And this time it's like real features were rolled out. Real features. And the biggest thing that should be threatened by the features that are rolling out would be QuickBooks Desktop. They finally are rolling out features to finally put desktop to bed. It's stacked up from multi-level. I don't know, do you want to go into it or do you want to talk about other stuff?
Can I talk about the keynotes?
Do the keynote.
And then we'll talk about the product stuff?
That's the inspirational first. Okay. That's the inspirational.
Okay. Well, so I took notes. I was listening. I was paying attention. And I have 3 key takeaways. 3 things I learned at QuickBooks Connect. Serena Williams did a fireside chat. She said, I never regretted saying no. And that's the thing that stuck with me, because in the accounting profession, we really struggle to say no, especially when it comes to taking on clients. And so I thought, I hope everyone takes that away from the conference is you are not going to regret saying no. We need to say no more. We have been trained in accounting to say yes to everything. Yep. To succeed as a staff accountant, as a staff auditor, you want to succeed, you say yes to all the partners, all the managers, all the directors. You're always a yes man, and you just overwork yourself. But when you own a firm, when you go off on your own, when you're trying to build a modern practice, it's way more important to say no to, I would say, a majority of the clients that are walking in the door, if not 80 or 90%, depending on how you've structured your whole marketing operation. And so I love that she said that. And you know what I loved about Serena too, David, is how confident and calm and collected she was. She just seemed so at peace with where she is now. Did you get that feeling?
Did you ever watch her documentary? I think it was on HBO about 2 years ago.
No.
She's so down to earth and so vulnerable. Like think about it. Like, she's breastfeeding her kids and had no problem with cameras being in the same room. And, I think she had a little like postpartum depression and she was upset. You know what I mean? Like she just put it all out there and she was very vulnerable, and that she's just genuine. I think you don't get that fakeness from her when she's up there.
Yeah.
The one thing I thought she said. Oh, good.
I was going to say, I got that feeling too. She talked a lot about her faith on stage and had no issue doing that. And I thought that was refreshing.
And then I like how she keeps phrasing, like she wants to be A, B, C, D, E, F, and a really good tennis player that won a bunch of championships. Like it's not like that's not her first. She does a lot of things, and that's a piece of who she is.
Well, we talk pretty frequently about diversity in the accounting profession, and Serena brought up the issue of diversity in cap tables, and that's one of the reasons why she is now pursuing a post-athletic career as an investor, and especially in African startups. She believes that if you want to help Africa, you need to have diversity on these boards. But my number one takeaway from Serena is I have never regretted saying no. Saying no. We need to say no more. Simon Sinek spoke, and he always has a lot of insights. He's sort of just one of those people that comes out that's full of quotes. Fantastic author. If you haven't seen his TED Talk, go search for his TED Talk on how to find your why. I forget the name of it exactly, but just search Simon Sinek and you'll go down a rabbit hole of YouTube videos. The thing that stuck with me that he said was he talked about his book, the infinite versus the finite games, or that concept. He wrote a book about this, like finite versus infinite games. And the main principle of that book is that businesses, people who play infinite games are the ones that win versus those who play finite games. And finite games are like a sports game, or like a tennis match is a finite game where there's 2 players, there's 2 teams, there's winners, there's losers. And unfortunately, a lot of people in business see business as a competition like that. We have to crush our competition, right? We have to win. And And Simon Sinek says, actually, that's not true. Business is an infinite game. There are no winners and losers. We all
rules.
can win.
I mean, there's guidelines, but there's no
Rules
rules
can
on your
change.
creativity. You can do anything you want. Yeah.
Yes. There's known and unknown players. The rules can change, and there's no winners or losers. And so what he said in that 30 minutes that stuck with me is he said, if you don't want to play a finite game, I'm paraphrasing, if you don't want to play a finite game, ask yourself, right, if growth is the goal in your business, what is the purpose of that growth? Growth without purpose is really a finite game. And we're going from quarter to quarter, trying to beat these results, trying to get these commissions. And I think any of us who have spent time in businesses know that the ones where everyone's just focused on a number, let's take the Wells Fargo fake account scandal, for example. They were so focused on a number that it led to a really, really messed up culture in the company that ended up costing them billions of dollars.
And it must happen with Intuit when they started going the GE way. The GE way is squeeze that diamond till you get that last drip of blood out of it. And it's kind of the same thing almost happened to Intuit in the past.
Cost cutting over everything else, right? That's a finite kind of game.
Next quarter's numbers, next quarter's numbers, next quarter's numbers. Yep.
Now, the thing that I wish that he had done, that I also wish Malcom had done, was like tie this more to accounting. Try actually make the leap and take your theory and apply it to what we're doing in at QuickBooks, right? A lot of accountants, what do? We produce financial reports, which are, you could say, a finite game scorekeeping. Quarterly reports, annual financial reports, right? You could see that as a finite game. And if that's all that the business owners or the stakeholders are focused on, then ultimately that's not going to help you win as much as thinking bigger picture. And to me, what that means is thinking about, how does your business impact everyone in the world? How does it make your customers' lives better? How does it make your employees' lives better? And if you do that, if you focus on that, right, if that's the goal of your growth, to make everybody's lives better, to improve the lives of your employees and your customers, then you're going to have a much more successful company. And I think Intuit does that really, really well in their mission statement. Powering prosperity. I don't know if that's still what it is, but I
think so.
That's what it's been past years. And I think that's really great, right? Like, powering the prosperity of small business is a Simon Sinek style, big picture goal that's more than just quarterly financial results. All right, number 3, last one, Malcom Gladwell. He was the final keynote speaker. And actually, I didn't know quite how to feel about what he said, David, because basically the gist of his entire 30-minute monologue was, good ideas take the longest time because they focus on the hardest problems. And he kept giving these examples of innovations that took decades and decades to actually succeed and to get through. Like the one he started with was containerized shipping, which took 60 years before it actually took off. And it changed the world by driving down the costs to ship goods internationally to a fraction of what it used to be, right? By using containers instead of manually loading and unloading. And I kept thinking to myself, oh no, this is yet another excuse for partners to say, oh, we'll do the cloud thing next year, right? We'll put off moving to desktop next year.
But I think the takeaway is good ideas take a long time to adopt, but I feel like he did reach a little bit, and it's hard to really see. I can see how he tied things together, but it's not necessarily really fully true. I don't know how to say that.
So you disagree with his key point?
Because a lot of ideas, and maybe it's ideas go faster now in this day and age. I mean, the iPhone took off fast. Now, yes, arguably his point is, well, they tried to make something like that in 1984 when they did the Newton, and I think it's a big jump. Like, how VCRs are the reason we get great TV shows nowadays on streaming. I think that's a bit of a jump. Like, I get how that allowed writers and story writers. Now people could record an episode. Now the stories don't have to be 22 minutes anymore. Stories could go on for multiple episodes. I see that's high, but nobody invented the VCR with that being the result. And that's what I mean by the idea, right?
Right. He's looking backwards and seeing this long path of an idea when nobody really in the moment knew what was going to happen at the end of it.
Yeah, and nobody, when Sony was building Betamax and VHS, Panasonic, and they were building out VCRs in 1979, 80, 81, they weren't thinking like one day we're going to have 15 long episodes of TV shows on streaming services, right? But he connected that together, and he connected it nicely. He's a great storyteller. But it's like, I don't know. But one thing I think in general, the scary part of this is earmark. That's what I keep thinking.
What about earmark?
Well, earmark's a great idea. Now, does this mean it's going to take us 20 years before people start using it?
Well, I hope not. Update for our listeners, if you're not on Earmark CPE, you can get CPE for listening to the Cloud Accounting Podcast and many other fine accounting and tax podcasts. Download Earmark CPE on the App Store or the Google Play Store. We are NASBA approved, IRS approved, and I don't think it's going to take us 20 years because we've already got almost 4,000 people using the app, David. 4,000 people have signed up for the app, and we've got hundreds of subscribers who are paying for the unlimited subscription. So progress to be made, but there are hundreds of thousands of CPAs out there in the world.
There's a finite number of them to go after.
There are a finite number, but we've barely cracked 1%, or not even that, maybe 0.5%. So we got a ways to go.
So taking a step back, because you tied Serena into accounting firms. You tied which is Simon into
Sinek.
Accounting firms. How are you going to tie Malcom Gladwell to accounting firm behavior? Other than that silly joke you made about not adopting cloud.
Good ideas take the longest time because they focus on the hardest problems. Well, I guess it's that we've been doing cloud accounting. Let's take cloud accounting as the example, right? I wish Malcom Gladwell had come out and talked about accounting technology and where we are in the big scheme of things with that. How long's cloud been around now? Cloud accounting started arguably in the US with NetSuite, and that's been 20 years.
It's been 20 years now, yeah.
20 years. So we're probably still at the early days of cloud adoption in accounting if you think about it big picture. Now, certain areas like client accounting services or bookkeeping, we're at 80% or more adoption, right? QuickBooks Online is now, Hector Garcia was saying it's like 15% desktop, 85% online in his view at this point. But then you look at tax software and it's flipped. It's the other way, where 80, 90% of the market is still desktop based. And there is no alternative other than, Intuit's cloud-based tax product. Like they're the only one that's true cloud. So that could take a while. That could take another 20 years potentially. But I do think we are, somewhere in the middle of it, because all of those ideas that Malcom Gladwell talked about were ideas that took, 30, 40, 50, 60, maybe 80 years at most, right? And so...
But look at the spreadsheet, though. That took like instant. Lotus 123, what was the original one? CompuBooks? I forgot what it was called, the first VisiCalc, whatever the first ones were.
Yeah.
Excel, it took off in
it took decades, 4, 5, 6
year period. It didn't take 20 years for Excel to get traction.
Well, for a personal computer to be on every desk in every office did take, I feel like 20 years or something, right?
Yeah, that's true.
More maybe. Anyway, it made me feel better about the pace of things, right? Like we just need to step back and look in the big picture. Things are changing actually quite rapidly. And that's good.
This episode of the Cloud Accounting Podcast is sponsored by Canopy. Did you know that Canopy has a partnership with the IRS? This means that you can now use Canopy to pull your client transcripts. The integration is approved by the IRS and can be configured to automatically pull transcripts so you can easily monitor if and when something changes. Now here's the best part. Once you have your client's transcripts, you can use Canopy's Notices feature to help you resolve your client's notices. Canopy has a library of 350 plus pre-built federal and state notice templates that provide an overview of the notice type, as well as walk you through the recommended steps to resolution. And Canopy can even create and autofill your IRS response letters. Canopy also integrates with QuickBooks Online, Xero, FreshBooks, CRMs, form builders, spreadsheets, calendars, email, and Zapier. They even have a mobile app, centralized file management, fillable PDFs, a client portal, task management, and the list goes on and on. To get a demo of Canopy and to receive a $40 Amazon gift card, head over to cloudaccountingpodcast.promo/Canopy. That is cloudaccountingpodcast.promo/CANOPY.
So David, enough about the keynote speakers. What about the product? Because I know our listeners want to hear about the product changes. Can you summarize for us the key product updates?
Yeah, so I'm going to bounce around my brain from little station to station as I summarize. So the first kind of place was
You mean the stations at the QuickBooks booth?
At the conference, yeah. So I won't say what the stations are. I'm just in my brain as an outline as I go through this. So QuickBooks Online itself, there was just some core functionality added that were for small businesses. But a lot of it's around the navigation and the UI to make it easier for small business owners so you can change the menus. If I don't use payroll, just turn the menu off in my QuickBooks. I don't need that. So you can customize the menus, resort the menus, have control over that.
And I can do that as the advisor?
Not yet. My understanding.
Okay. Got it. But I could go log in with them.
Yes,
on
you could help them customize
and then
it right now.
help them customize it. They only see the menu options they need to see.
Correct. So you have that. What's a huge one was check images. This has been coming, right? They started downloading bank statements a few years back. Now they're pulling check images. So if you have a bank feed and it just says check 4552, you pop over to the other tab and the check images are pulled down. You can see the check and you figure out what it's for. Right. So
is that every bank? I mean, it's got to be only select.
It wasn't
banks.
clear, but I feel like Intuit tends to use those verbiage where we get 85% of the people that need them. That kind of verbiage, so
the
they're
big
connecting
banks,
to enough, right? The bigger banks.
Got it.
And then the other big part of that was bank feeds. So there's starting to, when you first import your transactions, you connect a new client and you have 3 months of transactions in a bank feed. You got to sort. What they're doing is you kind of have almost like a Tinder-style wizard, for the lack of better words for it. And Intuit's really digging in with the machine learning to the bank feed. And they're like, hey, this is USAA. But is this for an auto loan? Is this for insurance? Is this for a retirement plan? Whatever it might be. And they're using that to figure out all the rest of your transactions. So it's almost like a wizard to get the small business owner through that. And then the other piece they're doing, which is long awaited, right now, if you have rules, it'll try to apply the rules before it tries to do a match, which is silly because if you have a transaction, you need to match. Just match it and you're done. You don't need a rule.
Yeah. I think that one got some good applause when they
may have the most
that.
applause. Yeah. I think that had the most applause.
So it'll match an existing transaction, and then if it can't match, apply rules, as opposed to the current situation, which is flipped.
And then for the Accountants Edition specifically, everybody who gets a QuickBooks Online Accountants Edition gets your firm's books. You want to call it that. So you have your team and your clients, and then you have your books for your firm. Historically, a lot of accountants have not used that either because they set up their bookkeeping as a separate QBO file before QBOA existed, or they don't use it because the people on your team, so if you're on my team, you can get into all the firm's books. Well, maybe you don't need to be in the bookkeeping of the firm. You do bookkeeping for our clients, right, Blake?
Right.
And so they added granular permissions for the firm's books. So I can keep you out of the firm's books if I need to, because you just don't need to be in them.
Oh, and that previously wasn't possible.
Not
Anyone
possible.
with access to the Accountant Edition could see the books on the firm.
Yes.
The firm's book. Oh, I see. Yeah, I wouldn't want that necessarily.
So think about payroll reports, things like that you don't want the firm's book.
Yep.
They did a lot with payments. They are now, in April, launching their own bill pay. So remember we talked about that in the conference call? I did get to see that. They're launching their own bill pay built on their own payments rails. So
and now this is not available now. It's coming.
That's correct. All this stuff is supposed to come out in the next 6 months, I think, all this stuff we're talking about.
What wasn't clear to me is this payments network going to be just ACH, just digital, or will I also be able to send paper checks into its payments network that's going to replacing, I take it, Melio.
On the bill pay side, it's replacing Melio. It looks like it's going to have similar options where you're going to pick, and you're going to pay on speed. I think that's the future. All payments will probably be free. You'll pay on the speed of the payment that you want. So they're doing that. They're doing some new loan products with QuickBooks Capital. And then on the receivable side, they're doing the network. So you have that end-to-end. If in my QuickBooks, I create an invoice, I mail it to you. You opt in, it shows up a bill in your QuickBooks, right?
So I'm a bit skeptical, I got to say, about this payment network thing, David, because Xero tried to do this, and it never really got adopted. The idea was you could link up one Xero file to another Xero file and then send bills and invoices back and forth directly into the files. The problem I had with this is it's only a small subset of invoices and bills that get processed this way. And then if I have an external processing workflow for all the bills that don't, it doesn't fit together. Now I have two workflows. So I ended up just disabling all of that and having all the bills go through PDF anyway, because they had to get OCR'd into the system.
It's the same discussion we had at Sage Intacct with their new lockbox acquisition, right?
Yeah.
Until all these accounting platforms agree to move these between each other, it's kind of not very useful.
Yeah.
Not every business is on QuickBooks.
Exactly. So I don't want to receive some of my bills inside of QuickBooks and then some of them via email. Then now I have two different processing inboxes. I want one inbox for everything. So I hope that they figure out a way where I can say, if I don't want to receive them in QuickBooks, I can have them go somewhere else. That would be ideal. Otherwise, most accountants aren't going to be able to use this. And maybe that's why we didn't really see a lot of applause. I think actually
accountants
some of
might
the
be able to use it the most because you have your firm's on QuickBooks Online. All your clients are on QuickBooks. That might be that's the for sure use case.
That's the only usage case is I can send my firm's invoices into my clients. But that's only if they're all on QuickBooks, right? If I've got a mix of clients on different systems, I can't use that anymore.
That's true. So
yeah. It was interesting. There were some feature announcements that just fell really flat, David. Do you remember that in the keynote? People were not really excited about this payment network. And I think the Intuit folks were surprised by that.
Yeah, I think it's they went pretty fast over it, but I think you're right. It's a wait and see on that payment network stuff.
You know why? It's because all the accounting firms already have a solution. Yeah. AP automation is the one thing that most firms have adopted in addition to payroll in the cloud. And Bill.com, right? We got Melia. We've got these other AP providers.
Even if it's not business to business, they're using CPA charge. They're doing other stuff to get paid and move that money around.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's this is not a problem that most firms have that this is solving. And I think that was why it didn't really get the applause. Do you remember what the biggest? This goes back
to maybe Malcom Gladwell and the 20 years thing. I remember in 1996 sitting through slide presentations at Intuit of invoices just moving from one QuickBooks to the other QuickBooks and maybe it's finally going to get here 20 years later, 25 years later.
I'll let you finish and then I have a question for you.
And then
because there was also Commerce, right?
Yeah, that's where I was going next. So Commerce, which is they really integrated very well the TradeGecko acquisition, which I think was 2.5 years ago. So TradeGecko had inventory. TradeGecko was an e-commerce play. So if I have omni-channel, I have a Shopify store and an Amazon store. I sell medium shirts on the Amazon store. It updates the inventory on the Shopify store, and then wraps up those summary sales transactions into QuickBooks. Used to be a third-party standalone app. This is now built into QuickBooks Online. So you have inventory, and not only inventory, you have what do you call it? I say 3D, but it's not 3D. It's when it's size and multi-dimensional
inventory, or they call it something else though. They call it. Yeah, it's sizes, colors, in addition to a SKU.
Yeah, and then you feed that in. It's an array, and it creates all your items for you. If you already done that work in Shopify or Amazon, it'll pull your items down into QuickBooks Online, and then QuickBooks Online will be your truth of inventory for those two channels. Now, right now they only do Amazon and Shopify. So if you have your own e-commerce store, it's maybe not going to work yet, right? They're not there yet. I'm assuming they'll.
They want to go there though. They said they want to add all the channels.
They've added inventory
did you mention
entries.
Did you mention this? The big thing for me was they're syncing the quantities back and forth. Did you mention that? So,
yes. So they're doing that as well now. So you don't need a third-party app to do that anymore.
Right. So right now Amazon and Shopify, and it'll sync the quantities between all the systems, right? So if I have the same inventory on Shopify and Amazon, QuickBooks will be my source of truth and will sync.
Yes, because if you sell your last medium shirt on Shopify, you need it to get off. You need to sell it as sold out on Amazon. Right?
Yes. Yeah. So this is big, but it's not public yet.
It's not public yet. It looks pretty close. That it's getting very, very close, but it's very, very, very impressive. And probably for most small businesses, you're getting very robust inventory built in. And I imagine when Xero gets done with the locate integration, you're going to kind of see some similar inventory type functionality in Xero as well. And then the last thing they had was they created a bunch of new ways to migrate QuickBooks Desktop. So right now, if I'm a 100% cloud firm and I take on a new client that's desktop, I would have to go get QuickBooks Desktop, put their file on it, and jump through all these steps. Now, basically, there's a place I upload their file, and the migration happens through a virtual machine. And then when I'm done, now it's in QuickBooks Online. But the piece that I really like best that they've done, and I feel like Hector Garcia said, and this may be good ideas, I swear Hector Garcia said this a decade ago. I'm not kidding about QuickBooks Online. He's like, they should just skin QuickBooks Online so it looks and tastes like desktop.
And they have that now.
And they have that. So they can basically, you can set a desktop setting and you'll get the menu on the left that looks like QuickBooks Desktop software. You get the navigator that looks like QuickBooks Desktop. You get all the hotkeys that you had in QuickBooks Desktop. So it's like, there you go. 20 years later, a good idea showed up.
Amazing. It makes sense, right? You're getting people to switch. The last thing that you need is an unfamiliar navigation experience. Just give them that map that everyone's so familiar with on the QuickBooks home screen from desktop.
But in general, it felt like a lot of the functionality they were adding is real functionality that helps people put more clients on QuickBooks Online. It's a bunch of features. That's another excuse why you don't want to use QuickBooks Desktop, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's tipping people over.
Yeah, and that inventory. Did they give us an idea of when it would be released, this new?
Well, they had a little disclaimer on all the demos that said anything that's shown here will be released within 12 months. I think they have to do that because of revenue rec and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, probably something to do with, being a public company and giving forward-looking guidance or whatever. Were the big disclaimers in front of every presentation, like, you can't rely on this?
On the desktop or whatever. Yeah. Before they started
Yeah.
the presentation, they were there.
This episode of the Cloud Accounting Podcast is sponsored by OnPay. OnPay is built for accountants, and with 30 plus years of payroll experience, they can be the payroll partner you can always rely on to get payroll and tax filings right for any client, even those with distinct needs like restaurants, farms, and churches. When you use OnPay to manage your client's payroll, you can balance that fine line between control and delegation for each client. Regardless, if you keep 100% control, delegate payroll to somebody at your firm, or hand off payroll duties to your client, OnPay always takes care of all tax payments and filings, even the local filings. And with integrations with QuickBooks Online, Xero, and QuickBooks Desktop, you can use OnPay across your entire client base regardless of the accounting GL they are using. OnPay's partner program offers free payroll for your firm, discounts for our rev share, and a dedicated support team of in-house payroll experts who will do all the heavy lifting, from setting up your dashboard to adding your clients and their employees. They'll even enter any prior wages to make it easy to switch. To learn more about switching your clients to the award-winning OnPay Payroll and HR, and to get free payroll through January 31st of 2023 for every client you switch to OnPay, head over to cloudaccountingpodcast.promo/OnPay. That is cloudaccountingpodcast.promo/ONPAY. Be more confident about payroll with OnPay.
That was a great roundup, David. Yeah. Oh, hey, what was the feature in the keynotes? What got the biggest applause? Do you remember?
I think the check images, which is huge.
Yeah.
And then the other one, I cannot remember what else got a big applause. If I remember, I'll let everybody know. One thing I did like about the keynotes this year versus the previous year when it was recorded, all the executives were like robots. They were just reading a script. It was really painful to watch the online QuickBooks Connect. This time, I felt like Ted Callahan, Cassie, Ashley Sutter, they're all humans. And not only that, they're all a little self-deprecating and even like maybe you can't crack jokes making fun of QuickBooks when you're in front of small business owners, but you can do it in front of accountants and bookkeepers because you're all on the same page in a way, right?
Yep.
And they made fun of their own support, right? And everybody giggled and they thought that was funny.
Yeah.
And it was really good for them to come off very human. Which is good.
I did feel that. I felt that throughout the whole conference. It felt very human. We didn't talk about the expo floor. One thing that was very interesting that I've never seen before is the Expensify booth on the expo floor was not a booth, it was a bar. They just built a bar, and apparently it's a recreation of the bar in their San Francisco office, and it's just a round bar, like long oval-shaped bar where you could sit, and they were serving juices and cocktails throughout the day, and it just had the Expensify logo on the top, and I've never seen anything like that. It was very creative, very fun.
And it's just like somehow Expensify always seems to stay one step ahead, because at the previous conferences, the last 12 and a half months, Expensify would have this double-decker booth that was taller than all the other booths, Well, the way this was a kiosk style, your booth was in a kit, right? But all the booths at QuickBooks Connect were really tall, like huge walls.
Yeah.
Super tall. So you didn't have that visibility across the floor. So the Expensify bar, so here they go. Instead of having the tallest, they had the shortest, but it was open and approachable versus some of the other ones.
I actually liked the turnkey booths, and that's what they call them when you go to a conference and all the booths are designed the same, they look the same. The conference organizers actually order those, and then you as a vendor, you provide the specifications for the artwork, and then it's all handled for you, which is actually really nice as an exhibitor because you don't have to bring all this stuff.
Yes.
And it creates this beautiful consistency in the experience. When you walk around the show floor, everything looks kind of the same, as opposed to when you go to one of those exhibits where it's like everybody just brings their own stuff and it's all kind of random. More curated, right, type of experience. But that Expensify booth was was very different than everything else. And the whole thing was just beautiful. It was much smaller than the expo has been in the past. And I think a lot of sponsors were complaining that they couldn't get in this year.
Well, and there was over 1,000 people on a wait list, possibly 1,300 to 1,500, I heard.
3,000 accountants and developers in attendance and a wait list of 1,300 before they shut it off, because they knew that they would never be able to, get more people on the wait list. So actually, a lot of people just came outside of the conference and came around the conference and went to the after parties.
Or just hanging around. And the reason why they apparently there was a second event happening at the same time, so they didn't have access to the space they needed to take on that many people at ARIA. I could not get a firm commitment that the event was going to be held at ARIA again, no matter how many rumors I heard that it's going to be. But I think you may have mentioned it, like the whole Vegas experience was just better for accountants and bookkeepers.
It's just so much easier to get to Vegas than to San Jose, and it's less expensive if you want to stay in a less expensive hotel and come over to the conference. Like, you can do that. There's just more entertainment. It's all contained. It's easy to get. I don't know. It had something for everybody, and so I hope they do it again in Vegas. And I really liked that they didn't have the small business owners. It was nice just having the accountants, because I think Ted Callahan said this. It's very challenging to do presentations for both audiences. They're very different. Yep. And so you can just focus on the accountants, and maybe they do something for the small business owners that's separate. I think that's good. The one thing I do miss is they had that wonderful market at their last QuickBooks Connect in San Jose when they had the small business owners.
It's a kind of style market. Yeah, that's right.
And I actually bought my wallet, which I've had for years now there, from like a Portland handmade leather wallet company, and they were a QuickBooks customer, and that was kind of a cool thing. So I would love if they would, even if they don't do the small businesses, it would be cool if they brought some of their key, small businesses to the event so that we could shop and get to know them.
I do like how firms are bringing their teams.
Yes, more and more.
So kind of rewinding. So the Pro Advisor program, the QuickBooks Pro Advisor program is 25 years old. So they were talking about that. And they had this slide with like 405 Pro Advisors that have been in the program since day one. And then
that's amazing.
They bolded all the names of the 40 or whatever that were there at the event, and they stood up in the front and they were waving their arms around. Then they asked all the people that were at QuickBooks Connect for the very first time to stand up. And there was a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe 1,000 that were there for the very first time. And it's because their firms, the firm managers, the firm owners are bringing their teams, which is like so good. Because if you don't include them, people are going to leave your firm, right? They're going to quit accounting. Like, why should you as a firm owner be the only one to enjoy this experience?
When I was on the plane coming to Las Vegas, I was sitting next to this guy who was, I thought he was going there for the rodeo. He kind of like had that look, because the national, I don't even know it's world.
Rodeo
but like
finals,
national,
yes.
Yeah, the rodeo finals were in Vegas at the same time. So it was funny because you had, 3,000 accountants at the ARIA, but then you had tens of thousands of people in cowboy hats, walking around Vegas at the same time, who are obviously there for the rodeo. And I thought this man was wearing his, flannel shirt. And I thought, oh, he's got to be there for the rodeo. But no, he was there. He was going to Vegas for the first time for a conference of well drillers at the Mirage. Well drillers. And I was thinking, oil wells? Is this guy like offshore? No, water wells. He is a water well driller, a small business owner in Florida. And he was there, and his trip was being paid for to come to this conference because his supplier gives him points. Whenever he buys equipment and supplies from his well drilling supplier, he gets points. And if he gets enough points throughout the year, they'll pay for him to come to the annual conference. And I didn't know this, but well drillers have to get 30 hours of continuing education every year. I thought, that's crazy. And he said, oh, well, it makes sense because we have to be really careful about water quality. You can, kill a family if you dig into the arsenic, well or whatever, right? So they got to test very carefully for water quality. And that's what the CE is for. So he comes to this conference for CE and to have a good time. And, it's 10,000 well drillers. And I said, I tweeted when I got off the plane, I said, hey, David, I think I actually stole this idea from you. Put on your QuickBooks shirt, go walk around the Mirage, and you'll have a whole bookkeeping business around well drillers by the end of the 3 days, right?
Because they have people there that are like, oh, yeah, we use QuickBooks, but we're stuck on this. We'll just keep it. Yeah, totally. Go to the niche conferences if you're in a niche.
Yeah, so I don't remember why I started talking about the well drillers just now, but I thought that was fascinating. But it puts things in perspective, right? We have 3,000 accountants coming for QuickBooks, but there's 10,000 well drillers coming to the Mirage for a conference.
This episode of the Cloud Accounting Podcast is sponsored by FreshBooks. I was on the FreshBooks website this week and saw this blog post, 5 FreshBooks features accountants love. So I figured let's share it with the Cloud Accounting Podcast audience. So without further ado, number 1, in-app estimates and proposals. With deep customization, you can create bespoke proposals for clients and even capture their e-signatures. Number 2, pre-populated chart of accounts. Help you cut down on your setup times, and it helps clients feel confident when classifying their expenses. 3, app integrations. Square, Dropbox, HubSpot, G Suite, Gusto, and Zoom. Time tracking allows your clients to take charge of their own time tracking and payroll and make invoicing a breeze. Checkout links. You can require and collect payments up front to eliminate the need to chase clients that owe you money. If you want to learn about the benefits of working better together with FreshBooks, head over to cloudaccountingpodcast.promo/FreshBooks. That is cloudaccountingpodcast.promo/FreshBooks.
So David, was that it for QuickBooks Connect?
I think so. I did get a LinkedIn message from, I'm going to say this last name and I might blow it, Heather Quitschau, Kwitschau. Maybe I nailed that name. I don't know. Yes.
You might have.
And she sent a message on LinkedIn, and she said, as members of the media, I hope you'll have a comparison of the various conferences this year. I'd really like to know how they differ from one to the next from your viewpoint. Obviously, product comparisons aside, but what's the actual demographics of the attendees? What's the sessions? What's the offerings? What are the conferences like? And now that we've done QuickBooks Connect, we could do this.
So, David, I'll let you go first. How do you feel? We went to QuickBooks Connect. We went to XeroCon. We went to Oracle NetSuite SuiteWorld. We went to Sage Intacct Transform. We went to, was that it this year?
And then you have Scaling New Heights.
Scaling New Heights.
Which is kind of, so we start with that one. So Scaling New Heights has multiple accounting GLs there. Sage was there, Xero was there, QuickBooks was not there, but a lot of the base is QuickBooks people.
Yeah. Scaling New Heights is the current biggest agnostic conference. So, Joe Woodard.
States, that's correct. Yep.
In the States, yeah. Joe Woodard Group puts this on, and he used to be pretty much QuickBooks only, and now has opened it up, and it's the premier agnostic. It's like a religion, right? Which GL you use. But yeah, it's open to anyone.
Yeah, it could be that way. So if I had to recap all of them, Oracle NetSuite. Oracle NetSuite tends to be a lot of startups, because a lot of startups, as soon as you take VC money, they push you that direction to Oracle NetSuite. Yep. So you meet
high
people
growth companies,
and they're CFOs, and they're like, we're going to hire 200 employees in the next six months, and they're like super hyper growth. It's very type A personalities, right? I think they're using the product, right? And then you have I'm going to say, lack of a better term, the implementers or resellers, right, that implement the.
There's a lot of IT folks.
A lot of IT folks,
SuiteWorld,
there.
Right, because there's dedicated NetSuite administrators, like the pro advisors of NetSuite are there, but they are really more focused on less accounting and more on just general IT infrastructure.
Yep. But you see a lot of the attendees are definitely people there to solve problems for their company.
Yeah.
Right?
Corporate.
They make a lot of buy
accounting
decisions. So they're like, hey, I'm having a timesheet problem. They select a payroll app or a timesheet app at the event in many cases. So it's weird. What I don't like about that, well, I don't know if I like it or not, but I feel like all the sales guys that are at the booths are there to sell. And so if I try to just go up to make small talk, they just, as soon as they realize I'm not a sale, like, get out of here, you podcast joker. It's just a bad vibe, right, that you get from them. I would say if you're going down now to Sage Intacct has growing businesses, but they're not those crazy hyper growth. Like, you'll meet people and they're a little bit more down to earth. Somebody's like, hey, I was a cashier at the company. I've been working there for 12 years. And then we merged with this other company. And now we had to roll out Sage Intacct. And they're growing businesses, but they're not in that insane growth, if that makes sense.
More Main Street businesses, right? Not businesses. Like high growth, we're going to take over the world kind of businesses. And a lot of not-for-profits on Intacct, because that was one of their core industry verticals early on. And a lot of accounting firms because of the deep partnership with CPA.com that Intacct has. And
then what I saw with that is you have the controllers or CFOs of some of these companies, they're there, but the accounting firms actually bring their clients in to meet. So a lot of people have virtual relationships, and this is the event. They entertain their clients. They bring their clients in, so the firms are bringing the clients into the event so they can collaborate while they're there and do the trainings together.
And that's kind of unique because you don't see that at QuickBooks Connect or XeroCon or NetSuite. It's really at Intacct where that happens.
Yeah. And then you have XeroCon, which is very similar demographic to the QuickBooks Pro Advisor demographic, maybe slightly younger. I would say this year I saw more QuickBooks people at XeroCon, and vice versa with QuickBooks Connect. I saw a lot of Xero people at QuickBooks Connect this year than ever before. And I think word's out, right? I think I said this after XeroCon.
What was funny was the QuickBooks folks who were like, okay, don't take any pictures of me or don't post any pictures of me on social media. I don't want QuickBooks to know that I'm here.
Yeah. But it's a more mature view of the market, and I think you could have clients on both. Yeah. It's realistic. And I kind of joked with, I think she was the VP of Xero in Canada. I saw her at the last day of XeroCon. I was like, absolutely, you should support both GLs because then you get to go to two amazing conferences.
Yeah, exactly.
So you should support two GLs.
Yep.
And then QuickBooks is, we just talked about who's at the QuickBooks conference, a lot of pro advisors, you have your VARs. I would say at XeroCon and QuickBooks Connect, the vendors are a little bit more approachable because it's a long sale and it's not a one-to-one sale. I think when they talk to somebody, they're selling that product to that one business that's at Sage Intacct or Oracle NetSuite. But in many cases at QuickBooks and Xero, you're selling to an accountant who has 50 clients. It's just a long sale. So that pressure's not there to make the sale instantly.
It's more about just building relationships.
Relationships, yeah.
And so it's more relaxed. Yeah. Yeah, I would say that QuickBooks Connect and XeroCon were very similar this year. In terms of the production value, they were both incredibly high production, just amazing events. The conference wrap party was fantastic at both. We didn't mention this, but QuickBooks Connect, they rented out the Jewel nightclub at the Aria, and it was completely full. And that's probably the only time I will ever go to the Jewel nightclub at the Aria.
It's all branded up. It's all these new nightclubs now have just LCD lights everywhere, so it's very easy for them to brand it to whatever brand they want. The stairs were branded.
There were green numbers like moving around all over the club. It was great. The music was great. You know what I really liked? It wasn't too loud. Normally you go to a nightclub and it's way, way, way too loud. Like it's damaging your hearing because I feel like most of the people are already deaf who like go to clubs all the time. But they definitely were cognizant of that. And I really appreciate that as a musician who watches out for my hearing. I didn't have to wear earplugs and I didn't come out with my ears ringing. So health and safety standards. Thank you, Intuit, for following that and making us all comfortable. Is that it?
We beat it down. There's nothing
that wraps our coverage. Okay. We've got 15 minutes left, so I want to get to some listener messages that I've received. Patrick said on LinkedIn, "Hi, Blake. It's great to connect with you. I've been listening to the Cloud Accounting Podcast weekly since the beginning of 2022. I really like your and David's insight on what is really happening in the accounting world. I also had a non-traditional path to becoming a CPA. I graduated with a degree in mathematics and thought I wanted to be an actuary. I've never worked in public accounting besides moonlighting as a bookkeeper for about a dozen small businesses. I now manage the billing and accounting functions of a large law firm in DC. It's an interesting perspective to see how a large, non-accounting professional service firm operates. I've also been using the Earmark app to earn CPE credits. Besides the Cloud Accounting Podcast, one of my favorite podcasts is Oh My Fraud. Keep up the great work and look forward to the next episode." And Dear listener, if you have not heard Oh My Fraud, you are in for a treat. Listen to Greg and Caleb talk about frauds. They dissect one in every episode, and you can get auditing and accounting A&A credit on the Earmark app for listening to it, so it's very popular. ohmyfraud.com. Listen and subscribe to that. Just a warning to our listeners who are not fans of foul language. They do curse on that show, so you should know that before you listen. Joseph said he had a question, David, and actually I'd love to hear your response to this.
Okay.
Joseph messaged us on Instagram and said, have you covered how to navigate client two-factor codes when accessing client accounts, downloading statements, or reconnecting feeds? Please do. It is my coworker and I's biggest annoyance of the last few weeks. Looking for an intelligent workaround rather than have staff send codes to us or have to take client time to have them relay from their phone/email. Have you dealt with this, David?
I have not, because I don't have a firm. Right,
That's true.
But I remember being at bookkeepers.com's conference, and this was a huge discussion. They're kind of an open mic Q&A, and this is a huge discussion. And when you listen to the workarounds people do for this, like, oh, we get the text and we send it to a Google Voice number. Then the Google Voice number, we use Zapier to stick into a Slack channel so everybody can just go get the code, the authentication code. But here's how you can get around it. Switch to banks like Relay, where everybody has their own login, and you don't have to deal with this anymore. Like, that's the best option.
It's true. Unfortunately, you're never going to get every client to switch to a modern bank like Relay. So what do you do in the meantime if you can't? My workaround was, like you said, David, use a Google Voice number and use that for all the accounts. So I had one Google Voice number, and whenever we set up accountant access, we would put in that number for the text message verification codes, and everyone had access to receive those. And you could probably you could probably figure out how to zap those into Slack or into Microsoft Teams if you want to make it even faster. But we were on Google Apps, so it was easy. Everybody would just be logged into the Gmail account associated with that Google Voice number, and then they could just switch over to it, and the text message codes would be in the inbox. And actually, I think we just started forwarding them at some point to another, like a Google group, an email distribution list, and so then that would just come through to everybody. And so if you had requested it, you would get it and you would know. And if you hadn't requested it, you would just ignore those messages. So you could do that with Google Voice. You could do that with Ring Central. I think sometimes, like, some verification services have trouble with VoIP numbers, or they used to. I don't think that's like so much of an issue anymore because now everybody's on VoIP.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my recommendation for those systems where you can't do that, is use a shared number that forwards to some sort of email or Slack. That's it for my listener mail. What do we want to talk about, David, in the next 10 minutes? What is burning other than QuickBooks Connect? We got a story from our listeners that I could talk about, a local story. Scottsdale startup facilitated massive amounts of pandemic-related fraud. This was sent to me by...
I forgot about this story.
A number of listeners actually sent this over. So thank you, everybody who forwarded it. This is highly relevant because for years we talked about PPP fraud. We were one of the first podcasts really digging into the possibility of PPP fraud happening. And all these reports keep coming out now. And we called it, David. We knew this was going to happen due to the lax controls, and we talked about it. We could probably go pull up clips where we talk about it. But
what was this company? I think you didn't say that.
So it was. There's also a fintech tie-in because they were based in Scottsdale. The company was called BlueAcorn, and
if I remember correctly, like, this is one of those companies that didn't exist March of 2020, and then in April of 2020 they existed, and just I don't know how they did this so fast. It spun up this whole company in. It's almost like they knew these loans were coming 6 months ago. It's very hard to build things. Amazing.
They saw the opportunity. They saw the opportunity, and they, to think about it, if you want to process PPP loans, you just needed like an online form, some sort of workflow software, and then a partner bank or a number of partner banks where you could, issue the loans. And people saw the opportunity. They saw the lax controls around this program. It was started in April 2020, specifically to facilitate PPP loans for small businesses. It's called BlueAcorn, based in Scottsdale, where I live. And a congressional report, the Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Crisis, issued a report that showed that BlueAcorn, it looks like, facilitated massive fraud
But let's be clear when that word gets thrown out, because they really didn't do the fraud. They made their checks and balances so easy that massive fraud was going through their system. Like,
right.
They didn't commit the fraud themselves, right?
Well, what they did is, they set up the system such that the folks reviewing the PPP loan documentation had 30 seconds to approve a loan. I mean, it was basically rubber stamping these applications that came through. And so they were maybe following the rule of the law or the regulations handed down by Congress and then the Small Business Administration, but they were not in spirit following it all. And so, billions of dollars went through this company, and now they've been investigated. Here's a stat. BlueAcorn's partner lenders. So BlueAcorn was the intermediary, between banks and these PPP loan applicants. Their partner lenders facilitated almost 3 times as many PPP loans in 2021 than JP Morgan Chase and Bank of America combined. Yet the report found BlueAcorn only had 1 direct employee who assisted with processing PPP loan applications. 1 employee was processing more PPP loans than JP Morgan Chase and Bank of America combined.
It's insane.
And right?
And Cabbage too, right? Cabbage was pounding through a huge volume as well. Yeah.
Cabbage did billions of dollars of loans. Loan reviewers working for BlueAcorn who spoke with the congressional subcommittee claimed they received, quote, no formal or informal training on loan underwriting, unquote, and were told the review, quote, should take you less than 30 seconds, unquote. The report found BlueAcorn gave priority to monster loans that will get everyone paid. So they were seeking those, big loans that would get them the percentage, the big percentage, because these lenders got a percentage of every single loan that they made. The incentive was really terrible, actually, the way it was set up, if you think about it. BlueAcorn's founders arranged PPP loans for themselves. In one application, one of the owners falsely claimed to be an African American and a veteran, and they fled to Puerto Rico after getting many of their PPP loans forgiven.
They committed fraud themselves then. So they did do their own fraud.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
it just wasn't because they spun up something that had controls, and they committed fraud themselves from day one.
Yeah. And they made almost over $1 billion. $1 billion from processing these PPP loans. So imagine how many loans they issued. If they earned $1 billion, that's just a small percentage of the total volume of loans. That's the one. I think it was anywhere from 1 to a few percentage points.
1.7. Yeah, it wasn't that.
Yeah. So if they earned $1 billion, they probably facilitated $100 billion in PPP loans, and essentially no review of any of that stuff. Amazing. Right in our backyard, David, although they're not here anymore. Now they're in Puerto Rico. And I wonder if they're going to get ever prosecuted for this. I feel like it has to happen. At least they're still in the U.S. So yeah, anything else you want to take us out with, David?
I got another Scottsdale story for you in your backyard.
Okay.
So a Scottsdale-based company, again, it's another accounting firm with engineers or bookkeeping firm with engineers. They're called Uplinq, UPLINQ. They are
and what's the web URL?
UPLINQ.ai.
Okay.
Oh, they might
they're
have
also
.com now too.
They have the .com.
They have
as
.com
well.
now as well.
Okay. Ooh, I go to the website and I see this really cool dark mode website and
Infinite Machine
robot moving little balls around with like cool charts and graphs that don't really mean anything.
So welcome to the
future. Welcome to the future of bookkeeping.
Yeah, they're a tech-powered company that provides advanced bookkeeping solutions through data automation and machine learning. They announced they raised $5.6 million in seed funding. And one of the investors was Live Oak Ventures, which is part of Live Oak Bank.
Yeah.
They're one of the biggest SBA lenders. And I guess what's interesting about this is, and I feel like all these accounting pilots and the scale factors, they all use this kind of loose terms where they say they have proprietary technology that comprehensively gathers and organizes and categorizes business transactions. But my brain is like, you're on the website right now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all, they use QuickBooks, they use Xero, they use all the off-the-shelf GLs, off-the-shelf.
Oh, they do? Where do they say that? They say that on their
That's in their press
page?
release. That's in their press release.
Oh, in their press release.
But if you scroll down, you can see all this stuff. So how do you have a proprietary system if you're built on QuickBooks?
Well,
isn't QuickBooks gathering the data? Not you at that point?
Well, what they have built I mean, if these screenshots are to be believed, is the visual interface that your clients would log into or that you would log into that's pulling data from QuickBooks. And it's
a graph. It's
charts and graphs.
Charts and graphs. Maybe a tool to categorize uncategorized income.
Yeah. And you can always tell when these tools are built by developers because it's in dark mode, right? Which is something that an accountant would never choose by default. And it looks a lot like digits.
It does has a digit smell as well, yeah.
Yeah. But it's like, I don't know if dark mode is what clients really want, like from their financials. Like it's the feel of it, like it's a little jarring, right? To log into a system that's like dark mode all the time.
Yeah, again, this looks like a dashboard app. It's funny how like dashboard apps are now becoming marketed as like automated accounting services. I don't know.
Well, I think that they can be very powerful when they're paired with a really solid bookkeeping service. And it becomes a really intuitive way for clients to interact with your company. And it's basically the next generation of a client portal. But it's hard to do it right. And ultimately, most clients end up emailing you, right? And half the clients, maybe if you're lucky, half the clients will use the portal and half email you. Nobody has figured this out. Nobody has solved this yet. So it is, though, something that differentiates you as a firm. And so if somebody's looking for a modern, super tech-savvy bookkeeping service, I mean, they lead with the tech. Uplinq's machine learning technology and experienced professionals keep your bookkeeping up to date and transform your data into actionable financial intelligence, all at the touch of a button.
Yeah, they don't communicate, if you're the small business owner, what the benefit is very well. And this is a lesson for all you accountants and bookkeepers. Communicate what value you're bringing to the client.
And they show the deliverable. And I think that's something that's really important is what is the client going to get every month? Even if it doesn't look as sexy as this, I think it's important to actually show them what they get so that it's more than just like I'm hiring somebody to do my bookkeeping and I hope it's happening, especially because I think business owners are getting smarter and a lot of them have gotten burned by hiring an accountant or a bookkeeper who then doesn't actually do the work. And they need some way to know that the work is getting done. And these types of dashboards help provide that assurance. It's a way of proving that this stuff's getting done. I can log in and see that you've done the work.
You should jump in and take a demo and go show up in person, see what it's like in Scottsdale there.
You know, if we were investigative reporters, then that's what I would do. So I think this kind of thing is neat. You know, the question, of course, is, the execution is like, how good is the quality of the bookkeeping work that's being done? Who are the people behind the scenes?
Making the calls on this,
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times that's the issue is that it's a lot of cool technology, but they don't have the people, right? They don't have the experience, and that's the challenge. But it's neat. It's neat to see, like Malcom Gladwell says, it takes a long time, a lot of people trying to build something like this. And this whole accountant plus technology solution, is it going to be Intuit and QuickBooks Live? Is it going to be Uplinq? Is it going to be, what are the other ones?
There's Bizone, Pilot, Digit.
Pilot.
It just goes on and on and on.
Scale Factor. Oh wait, that one crashed and burned. Yeah, we didn't make it. So anyway, David, we are at an hour. So anything else you want to say before we go?
This is a quick one. So AICPA is giving out $1 million in scholarships for 2023. Mm-hmm. And they have a bunch of legacy scholarships to maybe an accounting student or minority accounting student that's maybe going to become an accounting major, somebody moving from a 2-year school to a 4-year school, people that are going to become future CPAs. And the amounts on these are from like $3,000, $5,000, maybe $10,000, right? But then they're offering PhD candidates $20,000 for their studies because the reasoning is that the PhD students in accounting has decreased 40% over the last 10 years. But
we don't need more PhDs.
That's what this exactly
Jesus.
When I read this is what was going through my head. Do we need more PhD accounting students?
Have you read have you seen any of the papers that they work on? It's like, I'm sorry if you're a PhD accountant out there listening. If you are, write in and correct me on the record. But like most of this stuff, it's like the PhDs are who are screwing up accounting theory because they've never had any real world experience, and they create complexity that doesn't need to exist to justify their existence. I mean, this is what happens in a lot of academia. You write papers to write papers because that's how you get tenure, right? And I don't know.
I ran into somebody at QuickBooks Connect. She teaches at her university or community college. I don't know where she's teaching at. That's not the point. The point is the textbook that they have actually has some screenshots of QuickBooks in the accounting textbook. But the faculty told her, the business department, she's not allowed to teach QuickBooks to these accounting students.
I think traditional education is ruining accounting, and it's complicit with the big accounting firms in ruining the accounting profession. And it's not just in accounting. It's like all sorts of fields have failed to advance because traditional education and universities are just these monolithic organizations that they're going to be disrupted. They're already being disrupted. They're not going to survive. Most of them are not going to survive the demographic changes that are coming in this country with the population drop that's about to happen. And it's happening now. So get ready for the next 50 years. It's going to be wild. As always,
but go get your scholarship money though. If you can get some of it, go get some.
If you would like to rant at me and tell me I'm wrong, I love hearing that I'm wrong. I love hearing different opinions, and it was actually great. Like we had listeners that have been listening to the show that came up and said, "Hey Blake, I hear you on the 150-hour rule, and I agree with you." But I also had some folks that were like, "No, that's not the issue. It's this. We need to focus on this. We should leave the 150-hour." Hey, I love the debate. I love hearing from everybody. So if you disagree with me or agree with me on any of this stuff, I want to hear about it, especially those of you who disagree. Email us, cloudaccountingpodcast@earmarkcpe.com. And I am Blake T. Oliver on almost all of the social medias. How about you, David?
I'm just at David Lira on all the socials. And be sure you tag us in all these pictures you took at QuickBooks Connect.
Yeah, tag us when you post. We get all of those in our feed. And get free CPE for listening to this episode. Download the Earmark CPE app on the App Store or the Google Play Store. Every episode becomes a free CPE course that you can then take. It comes out about a week after the episode drops. So if you don't see it yet, it'll be there. Subscribe to our channel. You can actually earmark our channel on the Earmark app. It's a little bookmark app, bookmark icon in the top right corner. And then you can easily find all of our episodes there. And we're going to launch push notifications soon. So you can then get notified when your favorite channels have new courses. I think that should help people a lot. David, have a great week. I'm going to go plow through.
On the couch, I'm going to recover.
Oh yeah, hope you feel better. I'm going to plow through my hundreds of emails now and try to get back to people. And I'll see you here again on Friday.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Time for the classifieds. Are you still paying 1% for ACH to receive money from your customers? With uCollect, you can pay as little as 30 cents per transaction. uCollect has a two-way sync to both Xero and QuickBooks Online and gives you the features that the accounting systems lack, like installment plans, secure automatic payment setup invitations, automatic receipts, and allows access to other credit card merchant providers beyond the ones that come with the accounting system, giving you more control over the service fees that you pay. For more information and a 30-day free trial, go to ucollect.biz/CAP. That's ucollect.biz/CAP. Check out Hector Garcia's new app called Right Tool for QuickBooks Online. Instantly increase your productivity with keyboard shortcuts and more. It will save you seconds. The app is free at the moment in public beta. Check them out at righttool.app. That is righttool.app. RIGHTTOOL.app.
I don't care where you live in the United States. If you're a CPA, you have to take ethics continuing education. And I don't care who you are and where you live, you hate taking ethics continuing education. That's why me, Greg Kite, and my buddy, Adam Browd, we created a podcast called Drunk Ethics, where we unfold and expose all of the inner secrets of not just ethics, but how to become more ethical and to promote ethical behavior at your workplace. And we do that while we are getting progressively more shit-faced during the course of each episode. In each episode, we take 7 shots every 7 minutes. And so at the beginning, we are scholarly, and by the end, we are drunk yet still scholarly. If you're interested in this podcast, which I know you are, anyone can listen to the podcast for free. It's out there. You can find it. But if you want CPE credit for it, NASBA certified CPE credit, It is a premium course on Earmark, so if you're already a subscriber to Earmark, it's going to be more than that. But listen, it's worth it because of two reasons. First off, you know your company, you know your firm's going to pay for it and not you. And second of all, it's worth it, damn it.
Want to get the word out about your newsletter, webinar, party, Facebook group, podcast, ebook, job posting, or that fancy Excel macro you just created? Why not let the listeners of the Cloud Accounting Podcast know by running a classified ad? Hit the show notes for the link to get more info.